begins quietly, so softly that no one sees it happening. A small child, no older than 7, stands in the shadow of a parent unraveling before their eyes. Perhaps the parent is drowning in addiction, seething with anger, or simply locked inside the hollow silence of someone too broken to be present. And in that small moment, something ancient and unspoken ignites in the child's mind. If I do not hold this together, no one will. This is how a child vanishes, not in body, but in spirit. They do not run away. They retreat inward. They begin to smile more, to cry less. They learn to read the air before they dare to speak. They take on the temperature of the room and adjust themselves accordingly, becoming the emotional barometer of the household. They step into a role far too large for their tiny shoulders, acting like adults long before their minds are ready, and the world applauds them for it. You're so mature, they say, so responsible, so strong. But no one pauses to ask the most important question: at what cost? This is the invisible grief of those who are forced to grow up too soon. Today, we step deep inside the psychology of that child, because the consequences do not fade with time. They carve themselves into your very identity. They follow you into your relationships, your work, and even your sense of worth. If you never stop to understand what happened, you may spend your entire adulthood repeating those same survival patterns. The very ones that saved you once, but are now quietly destroying you. So let us uncover what was really happening all along. When children are forced to emotionally carry the weight of their parents, psychologists call this parentification. It is when the natural order flips, and the child becomes the caretaker, the peacekeeper, the protector, even the therapist. This is not simply unhealthy. It fundamentally reshapes the developing brain. When a child is made responsible for regulating emotions, their own and everyone else's, they develop hypervigilance. This is a heightened state of alertness, where you are always scanning for danger, walking on eggshells, listening for the slightest change in tone or expression. You learn that love is no longer unconditional. It becomes a transaction. If I keep the peace, maybe I will be safe. Slowly, you begin to believe that your needs are dangerous, that theirs always come first. So you disappear, not in flesh, but in feeling. And in your place grows a polished version of you, the one that performs, pleases, and never causes trouble. You become the good child, the quiet achiever, the friend who listens to everyone else's pain, but never shares your own. You wear that mask so convincingly, for so long, that even you forget it is only a mask. But deep inside, something aches. It's not loud, but it's constant, an ache that feels almost ancient. The child you buried long ago never died. They are still there, hidden under years of forced strength, silently screaming, "Why didn't anyone protect me?" As you grow older, those whispers turn into symptoms that are harder to ignore. Perhaps you become fiercely independent, so much so that you never let anyone help you. You push people away. You build walls so high that even love struggles to climb them. Maybe you never feel fully safe in intimacy, always waiting for the moment it will be taken away. Sometimes joy itself feels suspicious, foreign, like something you have not earned. You may sit in the middle of a happy moment and feel strangely numb, as though happiness is not for you. Rest might be unbearable, because stillness makes your body panic. Productivity becomes your only proof of worth. And the hardest truth of all? You might not even realize that you are still living in survival mode. When chaos was your normal as a child, your nervous system wired itself to expect it. Calm feels unnatural, peace feels suspicious, and love feels like a transaction you'll eventually have to pay back. This is not simply sadness. It is complex trauma, the rewiring of a child's mind and body that forever changes how you see the world and, most painfully, how you see yourself. You may wonder, why would a child ever step into that role, carrying a weight so heavy? The answer is heartbreakingly simple. Children will do anything to keep connection with their caregivers. They will even abandon themselves to maintain attachment. This is not a conscious decision, it is biology. The brain prioritizes belonging over authenticity because belonging means survival. That is not weakness. That is brilliance. That is the deepest instinct to live. But here's the tragedy. What once saved you has now become your cage. The coping strategies that once kept you safe, staying quiet, staying strong, staying useful, now hold you prisoner. And so many of us walk through the world as high-functioning adults, with these small, neglected inner children still tugging at the strings of our lives. We overachieve to feel worthy of love. We stay silent so no one will leave us. We take care of everyone around us, secretly hoping that someone, anyone, will finally see that we are not as strong as we seem. And deep inside, we carry that unspoken fantasy that one day someone will notice. Someone will finally see the cracks in the mask. Someone will hold us when we finally let ourselves fall apart. That deep, constant ache you feel is not the cry of your adult self, but the cry of the child who never had the chance to simply be a child. And the very first step toward healing is not to rush to fix yourself, but to simply witness what happened. Because until you dare to look back and say, yes, that really happened, you will keep silencing yourself with thoughts like, it wasn't that bad. Other people had it worse. I turned out fine. But fine is a mask too. And somewhere inside you know it. So what happens to that child when they grow up? They become adults who never feel safe, even in quiet rooms. They become lovers who flinch at tenderness, friends who give endlessly but cannot receive. They become the ones who apologize for crying, who shrink under compliments, who mistake exhaustion for achievement and stress for normalcy. This is the price of growing up too quickly. If your childhood taught you to be strong at the cost of being soft, to stay quiet instead of speaking truth, to repair others while neglecting your own wounds, then you inherit an adulthood lived on borrowed air. You keep holding your breath, secretly waiting for someone to finally grant you permission to collapse, to cry, to be cared for. But here is the truth that cracks everything open. No savior is coming. No one can rescue the child you buried. It has to be you. You are the one who must go back. Take that child's small hand and whisper the words no one else ever said. You did not deserve that. You were only a child. You get to rest now. This is where shadow work begins. Not with fixing, not with performing, not with painting over pain with empty optimism, but with turning directly toward the abandoned parts of yourself and saying, I see you, I hear you, and I will not leave. And yes, it is brutal work. It will demand that you feel the grief you once buried just to survive. It will ask you to sit with your rage, to weep for the birthdays where no one came, to mourn the innocence you traded to keep everyone else safe. But grief is not weakness. It is proof that you are thawing, proof that you are healing. What was once frozen is finally melting. When you begin to notice the patterns in adulthood, you see them everywhere. You might become the therapist in all your friendships, always listening but never truly seeing. You might wear independence like armor, praised for it by everyone, but deep inside terrified of ever being a burden. You may overfunction in your relationships, micromanaging, fixing, and over-explaining, wondering why resentment grows quietly in your chest. You may still struggle with saying no, because somewhere inside, no still feels like betrayal. These are not your personality. They are survival strategies, clever, conditioned responses that kept you alive. And here's the good news. What was learned can be unlearned. But unlearning requires that you stop worshiping your strength and start honoring your wounds. One of the most transformative things you can do is sit with your inner child and ask, what did I need back then that I never received? You might hear quiet, heartbreaking answers. I needed someone to tell me it wasn't my fault. I needed someone to notice when I was hurting. I needed to play, to laugh, to rest without fear. And slowly, very slowly, you begin to give yourself those very things, not to erase the past, but to stop reliving it. This is how you stop looking for parents in your partners. This is how you stop mistaking anxiety for intuition. This is how you stop running from the child you were and start meeting the self you are becoming. Carl Jung once wrote, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." But shadow work asks us to face it all, the frightened parts, the angry parts, the ashamed and neglected parts, until we can look at them without turning away. Because healing is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. If you are someone who had to grow up too soon, know this. Your maturity was never the problem. The tragedy was that you had no choice. But now, you do. You can choose softness. You can choose rest. You can choose to stop carrying the world and start carrying yourself. And no, it will not happen overnight. There will be days when you feel like that little child again. Good. That is exactly the point. Let them come home. Let them cry. Let them play. Let them finally be seen. Because you are not broken. You are becoming whole. And maybe, for the very first time, you are growing up the way you were always meant to. Not through pressure or fear, but through truth, love, and the freedom to simply exist. You never had a childhood, but you still have a future. And this time, you get to write it. You get to